Friday nights during the fall. Six-man fans gather to watch a sermon of grit and determination be delivered by 6 men, 10 minutes at a time, 4 quarters a night. Here you'll find the quarterback, is also the linebacker, and the kicker, where iron sharpens iron, where hard work pays off, and where 6 are won. Now for your host of 6 is 1, Coach Golemon.
Welcome to the Coach Golemon podcast. Today we have in studio, or by way of phone, Wayne Alldredge, who happens to be one of the principal founders of TAIAO. That's the Texas Athletic Independent. I always mix that up. I'll let him go through that. As well as a longtime head coach, football aficionado, and just all-around good guy. Wayne is one of those people that's been one of my mentors as I have learned more and more about six-man football. So when starting off this podcast series, I wanted to reach out to some of the people that have influenced me in six-man football, and so Wayne came to the top. Great Christian brother as well. I would just welcome you, Wayne. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
All right. So I'll start off, Wayne, with we've been having conversations for many a year now, but I really don't know much about where were you brought up? So give us a little bit of backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Man, that could take hours and hours and hours.
Okay, the short version.
Let's see. I was born in Reno, Nevada. Didn't grow up in Nevada, other than moved around many towns, mainly because my parents were running from bill collectors. And we finally settled in one spot in Salt Lake City when I was in 9th grade. It sounds funny to some people, sounds sad to others, but I went to 17 different schools before the 9th grade. And when I got to the 9th grade, I put my foot down and said, I'm going to high school all 4 years in one school. I did, but in order to do that, I had to drive myself to school because my parents were continuing to move around Salt Lake City. I attended the University of Utah and moved to Texas right after graduating from there because I'd met my wife there in Utah, and she was from Texas. Okay. And I don't know if you've tried to separate a Texas girl from a Texas mom, but it doesn't last very long. And so we moved to Texas and have been here ever since. I consider Texas my home, and that's where all my kids were born. I don't know what else. I'm an accountant by trade. Got involved in six-man football because my kids were going to a school that had six-man football. Had never heard of that strange sport.
So tell me, did you play any sports growing up? I mean, when you were in high school, obviously a lot of moving around there, but did you use soccer, any of that, I don't know, karate, whatever it is?
I did some Pee-wee football for a couple of years, and then when I got to high school, did play football in high school. So I was able to do that as part of my growing up. I always loved football, loved watching football, studying football, but didn't have a chance to get into it from a young age like some kids did back then anyway, where they started playing when they were 8 years old and played all the way through college.
Right. So now delve down a little bit into what brought you into coaching. I guess you said your children joining a school in which six-man. Which program was that?
It's NIOS Charter School. I'll tell you, it's funny. There were no athletics at all at NIOS when my kids started going there. NIOS stands for Not Your Ordinary School. And there wasn't any athletics at all. Coach Tim Cannell, started 1 year. They played flag football. They prepared for about, I want to say 2 months for one flag football game that they had against another tiny school that had flag football. And the next year, they decided they were going to go to six-man route. Now, I didn't know what six-man football was. I thought it was an extension of flag. But because I worked for myself, my schedule was very flexible, and I was able to attend all of the NIOS football games. Now, that's a big deal because at that time, NIOS didn't have any field in the Austin area. They were playing all away games. And so you know how it is in Texas, the away games were 2.5 hours away a lot of times. Since I was free in the afternoons on Friday, I could go to all the games. And about the third or fourth game of the season, I think it was, they got beat pretty bad. I was up there in the stands. Hardly anybody was there because they're so far away. And poor Coach Canetto was down there on the sidelines by himself because his assistant worked a job that didn't allow him to get off early enough to make all of the games. Now, on the way home from that game, I told my son, and I promised it was a throwaway comment. I said, I almost came down to the sidelines to help Coach Canetto out. And I didn't expect it to go any further than that. Well, the next Friday, I get a phone call at work, and Coach Canetto says, Joshua says you want to come help. And so he invited me down to the sidelines, and that night I coached NIOS in defense. We won that game 14-13, and I thought, well, that was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. Maybe kind of expected him to invite me back for next Friday's game. What he did is he said, you should come to practice on Monday. So I went to practice on Monday, and that was the last practice I missed for 17 years.
There you go. I mean, there's no dipping your toe into that water, is there?
No, not at all.
No good deed goes unpunished, especially a non-paying deed, right? So
that's exactly right. Yeah.
You know, I often tell every one of the volunteers that we have within our organization, I always tell them, look, I'm going to double your salary every year. Don't worry, I got you back.
Yeah. Well, see, you take the opposite approach from me. I threaten them. I'm going to cut your salary in half if you don't do this.
There you go. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's actually a great story. So for 17 years, that's a good long stint with one program. You know, it's interesting. A lot of coaches, they don't get blessed with being at one program. As a matter of fact, they spend most of their time bouncing around between programs. You know, I guess part of that time you saw NIOS, I'm sure, develop quite a bit. So give me a little bit of backstory on those 17 years, and you know, in terms of, you know, what you saw from season to season. You know, how the program improved, but then maybe if there were some dips or lulls. What was that about? You know, what did you see that's a good long stint.
Yeah, you know, it's a long time. I enjoyed. I would say I enjoyed most of the minutes. I can't say I enjoyed every single minute. That'd make me a liar. But I enjoyed most of them. NIOS, the school itself, it's funny that people that don't know how charter schools work or you know, what they're about, there's not an athletic budget at NIOS. I've run into people who think, well, I wish I was at a charter school because you got everything. And the truth was at NIOS, we didn't have anything. The kids paid for their own equipment. We had to do fundraisers and use the gate to make sure we could pay for officials. The athletic program had to be self-sustaining. And it was. It just worked out because of a lot of good people who volunteered their time, who gave money, who just worked at it because they wanted to do something for the kids at NIOS. And that's kind of where I fell in. NIOS started out, wasn't part of any league, just independent. Did our games throughout the year, didn't have anything to play for at the end of the year. The last couple years of Coach Canetto's tenure, he coached about 5 years after I started, I think, 5 or 6. And the last couple of years, we went to the Ironman tournament, which was a little tournament we put together where we did quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals all in one weekend. just Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's not as bad as it sounds because the first two games we just did half games, so they're 2 10-minute quarters, if you will. So it ended up being about like a practice would be in terms of time and effort that kids had to put in. But we participated in that tournament for several years, and that was our playoffs. There were years we did great, won the tournament in 2007. Then there's years, my worst year, we were 0-11. All freshman team. I think I had one sophomore that year, and the rest were freshmen.
Oof.
And we were 0-11. But the year after that, we increased our win total to 5. And after that, we got pretty decent to where we could pretty much count on, 8 to 10 wins a season.
There you go. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned that you were in this Ironman tournament, and that's one of the things that a lot of people always ask me is, well, what league? What do you do? And I try to spend some time, letting folks know. Well, I always do it this way. You may do a little bit different. I always say, well, there's public and private, and so the public schools play D1, and then the private schools have their own division, and then we kind of break it between really down the middle. There's the private schools you think of with the big budgets and the AstroTurf football fields and the ones where it costs $20,000 a year to send your kid to school. That's kind of one league, and that's TAPS. I always throw them in there.
Right.
And then there's the other side, which is and at one time I would say, well, it was kind of split between two leagues, TAIAO and TAIAO, but really, thanks to you and a few of the other people, TAIAO has become the dominant force. Now that's Texas Association of Independent Athletic Organizations, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So let's delve a little bit into TAIAO, because I really do now. I say there's kind of TAIAO and there's TAPS, and then there's, of course, public D1 public. But give me a little bit of backstory on TAIAO. I mean, how did it come about? I mean, it's now in about 6th year, 7th year. I know it's
this next year coming up will be our 7th year.
Okay. Yeah, and it kind of, what was the impetus behind forming it? Let's just start there. What is the impetus behind forming another 6-man league? At the time, there was at least TCAL and maybe even a couple smaller independent. I guess those are parochial leagues. Usually like the Lutherans, I think, have a league or something like that. So why TAIAO?
I'll tell you, there were really 3 coaches who always participated in an Ironman tournament. And if I remember right, that Ironman tournament, we had about 5 or 6 years of doing that. And every single year, those 3 coaches, Brian Johnson and John Ash. John Ash from the Syntax Chargers, and Brian Johnson at the time was with what is now the Austin Royals, Capital Christian Cougars at that time. Every year we'd say, we need to start a league. We need to just do our own league. But the problem is, every year we'd start having that discussion about the time we were doing the Ironman tournament or putting it together. And so towards the first part of the week, we'd be all gung-ho. Yeah, this year we're going to do it. We're going to do a league. And that way next year we can do regular playoffs. And, we don't care. Maybe it's only going to be 6 or 7 or 8 teams, but we're going to do it. Well, what happened is every year, by the time we got through with that 3 days of nonstop football, we were all ready to hang it up and say, forget it till next season. So we never followed through on taking the steps to get the league started. Well, one year, John Ash called me on the Sunday after the Ironman tournament was finished, and he said, Wayne, this year we got to do it. We got to do the league this year. And so I said, okay, and actually went down to the county that week and got a little DBA and said, we got a league. Did some research with a few people that I knew, John Toddy and Granger Huntress, and, what do they feel like, would it work, not work? And long story short, that first year we had 8 teams. And we did it that way on purpose. We didn't even do a regular playoff structure that year. In fact, we just kept the Ironman. The honest truth is we weren't sure we were going to have 8 teams left at the end of the season to do a real playoff. So we figured if we kept the Ironman, we'd be kind of playing it safe. Well, we made it through that year, and in the process of it, going through that year, I started having other coaches contact me, coaches that were involved in other leagues, other independent coaches, and they wanted to know about this new thing. What was it all about? So I would visit with them, and in fact, that year I went down to Bryan College Station for when TAIAO was having their All-Star games, and I went down there and met with several TAIAO coaches at their request, not TAIAO's request, at the coach's request, because they had questions about this league. Well, bottom line is the next year we had 18 teams because a whole bunch of TAIAO teams switched over and we added some others. And that's when it really formed. That first year when it was only 8 teams, and that was a loose association. I think our rules fit on 2 single-spaced pages. And at that time, all the coaches knew each other, we trusted each other. We knew we weren't going to do anything but cheat or anything like that. So the rules didn't have to be really expansive, or we just knew each other. Well, as we added more teams, we knew that we couldn't go on the trust factor forever. And that's when really good people like Rush Cohn and Michael Daggerath and Billy Helm, they came in and really lent their talents to developing our constitution and our general rules and our football plan. And what grew out of that is we need to make sure that in everything we do, our first priority is what's best for the kids. See, the conversations that I had with other people who were unhappy with whatever league they were in, it always came down to some adult was taking care of his or her ego rather than doing what was best for the kids. And so that's when we came up with the tagline of "It's all about the kids." And we really tried to build our rules and our league about what's best for the kids. So that's where it came out of. It originally started just because a couple of coaches wanted to have their own postseason. They didn't fit into the other leagues, and so we said, let's just do something for a postseason. And of course, as we got more and more teams, we realized, gosh, we're going to have to do more than 6-man football, and added on basketball and added on volleyball and baseball and softball and track and academic meet next year, and so it's turned into a real league. And it was almost by accident that it ended up being what it is today.
It's really amazing. I got to, of course, join in probably just right about the time it was starting, maybe a year in, and see it grow. I've been really impressed with the league. So what do you think? What do coaches tell you that are in the league that they enjoy about this league? Because they're coming usually from some other place. I mean, there have to be a reason to make a change. It's not easy to say, well, I'm going to uproot my history with whatever league it was and go into this and into this one. So what do you think are the big the draws to TAIAO?
Well, I can say one of the draws is that we're here. Frankly, some people they've really been, I don't want to say hurt, but they've been done wrong by whatever league they're in, or at least they perceive they've been done wrong. So in some cases, they're just looking for somewhere else. But the biggest thing, I guess the biggest positive comment that I hear whenever there's a comparison is they like the league's responsiveness. If they call, and they may have to leave a message, but they get a call back in a reasonable amount of time. If they bring up an issue, we really do address the issue as opposed to just letting them talk and, talk it out, whatever. People, in other leagues have felt like they're just there to write a check to the league and it doesn't really matter what they think or say, or they just feel like they don't have an impact on the rules. And, I'll be sending out here in the next week or so a solicitation to our members of, what are we doing wrong that needs to be fixed, in your opinion? And we'll take all that under advisement. We'll come to our summer meeting and we'll talk about that stuff. So that's the big thing, is that people who are in the league, they feel like they're really a part of a league rather than just a component of somebody else's league. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, no, it does. I will say the one thing you brought up earlier, the rules, and I think what's interesting, a blend of with TAIAO, at least what I can see from my perspective, is that in public school you have public school rules, and but everybody is the same nature. They're all public public schools. In TAPS, you really have all private schools. What makes TAIAO unique, at least from what I can see, is that you have charter, which are public schools. You have private schools, which are literally, the privates, and you have these homeschool, programs where you get an association of parents get together and form teams. Speak a little bit about how different, or maybe it's not different, but that unique blend of public, private, and homeschool that it kind of exists within TAIAO, and strengths, weaknesses, where you see that play out.
I think it's one of our strengths, but it's also potentially an Achilles heel for us. And what I mean by that is we get a lot of great talent from the homeschool community. You and I started off, we were discussing volunteers. The homeschool community is made up of volunteers. And so at the league level, we're volunteers. And so when we ask for help, it generally comes from the homeschool community. I've always said, if you want to get something done, find somebody who's really busy volunteering and ask them to do it, because they know how to get things done. And so that has just been invaluable. If I look at the people that are serving on committees in our league, the majority are from the homeschool community. Now, so that's a huge benefit. And then they're great people, great kids. The homeschool athletics in general has gotten a bum rap in some cases, but also in some cases it's gotten a deserved rap.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the fear of say a UIL school or a TAP school. The fear about homeschoolers is that, well, they're going out and recruiting all the best players. They'll go to a convention and they'll find all the big fast kids and say, "You want to play football, don't you?" And they'll bring them in, and they might be a little fast and loose with how old they are. And of course, there's the old joke about make sure they leave their kids at home when they come to the games and things like that. And that reputation came about because there were a few homeschool communities that really did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it gave a bad rap to the whole homeschool community. And even in my case, my evolution and how I think about homeschool teams. So when I was first at NIOS, and we played a couple of homeschool teams, and they pummeled us, and all their kids looked bigger than all our kids, and so I bought right into this. Man, they must all be 20 years old, and for a couple of years, I wouldn't schedule any homeschool teams just because of that. And it was meeting people like Billy Helm and Michael Dagerath. I remember Rush Combs sent me over a listing of what San Antonio Feast's eligibility requirements were. And they were more stringent than any that I had seen. I said, okay, if you follow these guidelines, then yeah, I'll schedule you because I know I'm going to, it's fair, And so I evolved to realizing that it wasn't all homeschoolers that were doing these things that gave the whole community a bad name. It was really just a tiny, tiny minority of them.
Yeah, and they're all in basketball. No, I'm just
Well, I could tell you some stories about the football ones too.
I'm sure. Well, it's interesting because I always find that the recruiting. I said, if that is the case, the vast majority of parents that I've am coming from a homeschool family do not elect to educate their children for sports purposes.
Right.
It's really not. I want to spend a lot more time with my children at home in an academic environment for sports purposes. Just think about it.
That's not it. And when there were those bad apples, Brent, it typically was a dad who had to live some of his own glory again. I'm going to coach my kid, and he's going to be the quarterback, and we're going to just get anybody and everybody to come out and play. And since there's no rules, because we're not in a league, we can pretty much do what we want. And it was really, usually it was one person in an organization who led them down a path, and then that organization started doing stuff, and typically they're just not around that much anymore, or they don't last very much anymore, or they don't last long anymore, because a lot of people are on that game.
Yeah, people just step up.
You just don't schedule.
Yeah, people quit scheduling. Yeah, I the same way. I mean, I think that's the same even within any of the leagues. You don't schedule people you don't have any respect for, and programs you don't have respect for, and soon you find it hard to get good games or good teams to play, and it just becomes a death spiral. Next thing you know, you're playing lesser competition, and people aren't wanting to come play for you, and it's usually doesn't end well. At least that seems to be
exactly. And when we put together the rules for the league, we knew that we were going to be a homeschool league, not exclusively homeschool, but we were going to have a lot of homeschool organizations. So we had to put together the rules that allowed for the way homeschoolers think. They're not necessarily in a grade. They're a certain age. You may have a 10-year-old doing 12th grade work. That doesn't mean he's a 12th grader. He's still 10 years old. And so we had to put together our rules to allow for that. But at the same time, and this is critical, we had to be able to have our rules pass muster when the people at TAPS looked at them, or UIL looked at them. And the reason for that is they have the ability to tell their teams, you can't play any of these TAIAO teams if they don't like our rules. Yeah. And so it's really a tightrope. Please, the homeschool communities who really are different than a charter school or a private school, but at the same time, make sure we don't get ourselves to the point where we're blackballed by other leagues.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the things that I have a conversation with myself when I speak and play against public or TAPS teams, is to always reiterate that so that they understand. Because I don't know if even all of their coaches understand that. Sometimes they run into one of our better teams and they think, well, and that's just like you did. It's going through their mind. Those guys are all, a bunch of 20-year-olds. Although I would say I would have the shortest, skinniest 20-year-olds. I'm putting in for some bigger 20-year-olds. But but it is one of those things that you want to make sure you preface, look, hey, we're doing it right, and so that they will maintain and keep scheduling us. So where would you like to see? I mean, we're TAIAO, now at upwards of upper 30s, early 40s in terms of overall number of teams participating, or schools / leagues, teams participating in all the different sports. Where do you see the future of TAIAO? I mean, do you see that number getting larger, and if so, kind of where, and then where do you see the growth? I mean, do you see it in just one particular sport, multiple sports? Kind of what is your feel for the next, say, 7 years?
Well, the football, six-man football is where we started. So it has the biggest lead in terms of development on the other sports. We're already pretty settled into divisions. we don't really need a whole lot more teams in football to be able to say, okay, now we're going to do districts. I think we're a couple years away from that, where we'll base a playoff structure on a district schedule rather than on rankings. And but all of our other sports are quite a bit behind football in terms of that development. We have we have more football teams than we have basketball teams or volleyball teams or any other sport. So I think the real growth is going to come in the other sports before we really start adding a lot more football teams. There's a lot of schools out there that don't even have football, but they've got good basketball programs or good volleyball programs, track, soccer, whatever, that they're looking for a place. And for the first few years, we were all about football and the other sports kind of, okay. Well, we have to change that structure to where if we're going to attract these other teams, they have to see that we have as much emphasis on our other sports as we do on football. And that's where the growth is going to come. Now, as we add more teams in all sports, then we'll start to attract more of the football teams as well. It really is a chicken egg scenario. There's a lot of people out there that say, well, I'd like to join that league. As soon as they're bigger, I will.
Yeah.
And if they would all join, we'd be bigger.
Yeah, I can see that. You have to join for. My understanding is you don't have to join for all sports. You can have select sports right now. It's not a requirement that you're all in or all out. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now that's the way our rules are set up. The challenge that teams or that schools run into, let's say they're a member of TAPS. Well, TAPS has a rule. We have to be all TAPS or nothing. So even though they might want to come to us for, say, basketball and stay in TAPS for everything else, TAPS won't allow them to do that, even though we would.
Did not realize that.
So it's the other leagues' rules that sometimes are holding a team back from taking a jump because we don't have as strong an offering in all of the sports. Maybe they're just a super gung-ho soccer school. Well, they like the soccer offering that TAPS has. Our soccer offering is right now is pretty weak. We don't have a lot of teams that have soccer yet. So we just had our soccer tournament, but it's only a few teams, and so they don't want to make they might want to make the jump to us for basketball, but they want to stay in TAPS for soccer. TAPS won't allow that.
Gotcha.
So they end up staying in TAPS for all sports until our sports are all up to what they want.
Well, and you bring up soccer. I wasn't even aware that TAIAO had soccer, so that's interesting. I mean, do you see it? What other sports? I'm trying to go through. You kind of mentioned pretty much all of them. I guess the ones I didn't hear were swimming, or I don't even know, wrestling, or things of that nature. Are those even? I don't even know if those are big enough, or does TAPS even? I guess the best way to approach this is there something that TAPS or UIL offer that we currently don't offer in sports-wise in terms of TAIAO?
Sure, and you just mentioned a couple of them. Swimming, tennis is another one.
Tennis, golf.
The wrestling, golf, and other than wrestling, I haven't had anybody who's asked me about wrestling. But those other three, I've had people inquire about those sports specifically, and we're a volunteer organization, and I'll tell people, look, we'd love to have a swimming program in our league. I don't know anything about swimming other than getting in my kiddie pool, So if somebody comes with the expertise that wants to try to help us put something together, we're very open to that. Well, if you're a school who has swimming and you're the swimming coach and you're already busy as all get out, you may think, well, I'd rather stay where I am than have to go build the swimming program for this league. Yeah. But I also believe we're going to find somebody who wants to build that swimming program for us. It's just not the right time yet because they haven't appeared yet.
Gotcha. So, gonna switch gears just a little bit, go back into put on the coaching hat for a second as we sort of wrap up. But I do have some questions on the coaching side. So you're gonna have to give me the backstory as well. What is the worst officiating call? Because the officials always get it right. I understand that, but in the off chance that they were ever to make a mistake, what was one of the ones that you would say, or maybe there are a couple that you thought, that's crazy. Can't believe I just witnessed that.
Well, I guess the story I'll tell is the only time I ever received an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And I deserved it, but the official deserved what I gave him too. And it's for this reason that I won't play a game anymore I won't even throw the chapter under the bus, but there's a certain chapter of officials I will not use. We were playing a game, and we were the opposing team threw a forward pass from one player to another that the second player received behind the line of scrimmage, and the second player then threw a forward pass downfield, which was completed for a touchdown. And it was clearly forward, and it wasn't even an issue of I saw it as forward and the referee saw it as backwards. The referee told me, Coach, this is six-man football. As long as it's behind the line of scrimmage, you can do that.
You can make up any rule you want. It's six-man football.
That's right. And so I didn't go ballistic right at that moment. But what happened is I started paying attention to every single call this guy made, and I started vocally pointing out to whoever would listen when he was wrong. Well, he eventually got tired of that, and he hit me with a penalty. And to this day, that's one of my proudest moments of coaching, that I stopped there and didn't get another one, because he gave me plenty of reasons to get ejected from that game, but I didn't.
There you go.
So whenever coaches who do get ejected come to me and say, he shouldn't have ejected me, I always say, wait, you were given one. You decided to take action to get the second one.
I think if anybody that's been coaching for any length of time is come up to that line. I've been blessed not to cross it either, but yeah, pretty much the only thing you can do is go to shutdown mode at that point.
That's right.
Yeah,
you got to save that for the after game meal with your coaches.
Yeah, well, you were lucky. I got mine within the first 2 minutes of a game, which means that the officials came into the game already being told that I was going to to give them an earful, and so I didn't even have an opportunity. I was like, wow, that was fast. So, I guess I'll be quiet the rest of this game.
Well, but like all coaches, we're trying to make friends with the refs. We want to be, a little bit of give and take, joking and laughing. And I felt like I got to where I was pretty good at that. And I knew some referees that, they were bad. They didn't understand a lot of how the game was supposed to be called. My approach with them was I'd make them such a friend that they would look to me for guidance.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of referees that I know, they'd watch over the sideline to see what signal I was given before they would throw up the safety or whatever.
Oh, Coach, I have to tell you, I was part of one of those incidents. I don't know if you remember, but we played one year, and you told the official, "Hey, that's an illegal procedure on one of my guys moving lateral prior to the snap," and I went, "What?" And he throws.
I remember that specifically.
And he throws that flag, and I okay, all right, I'll settle down here. Let me bring that guy over here. I was like, I get it. The guy across from me's got at least a decade or more on me, but hang on, the rules are the rules, dude. I thought that was a great moment. I was like one of those touches. Okay, you got it once, but that's all you're gonna get it. Oh, I was just like, I can't believe what just happened there. So
I just wanted to be in Grant's head a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, my cue was he turned around and looked at me and went, "What? What was that about? So,
Well, the backstory to that one, Brent, is during the week, the preparation for the week, I did say I'm going to get him on that call. I'm going to get him on that call.
well, you did. I mean, flat out. Got it right off the bat, and I don't know if I even share with you, but I told that official. I said to him when because you're kind of like, how am I going to explain that, right? It's sort of like the 2 forward pass thing that you brought up, right? How do you explain to an official that 2 forward passes are illegal, right? I mean, it's obvious. So I said, well, okay. I brought that official over. I said, okay, well, if I started him, over there on the sideline, and I had him run across the field and snapped him the ball, would that be okay? And, he looked at me and he goes, yeah. Well, I said, well, what if we just didn't have to tire him out by making him start on the sideline, and we just started him somewhere near the middle of the field? Would that be okay? And he looked at me, and that's when obviously the light kicked on. And he goes, yeah, it's okay, coach. That was the end of it.
Well, after you said that, he came back over to me. I said, no, I'm not talking about the fact that he's in motion. I'm talking about how he takes off. He's taking off quickly. And he goes, oh, okay, good flag.
He's going in motion too fast. Yeah, I know. It was one of those unique moments. So, give me your best coaching moment. I mean, what's one, or maybe a couple that you look back on and you go, wow, that was. And it doesn't have to be at I guess, well, yours they would all be at NIOS because that was 17 years at NIOS. But it doesn't have to be necessarily football. I don't know what other sports, but what's just one of your better coaching moments?
Oh man. Well, I'll give you two, and they involve the same player, and you probably know who I'm going to talk about here, Casey Duffner.
Yeah.
Not last year, but the year before, we were playing Fort Bend in, I want to say it was the quarterfinals, and it was a back and forth game, high scoring game, back and forth, and with about 2 minutes left, a little under 2 minutes left, they took the lead on a pretty long, sustained drive. We had under 2 minutes to drive the field and make a touchdown and win to go on or go home. And I pulled Casey Duffner aside and on the sidelines, and I said, I grabbed his face mask and pulled it down to my level, and I said, you ready to be Vince Young? Because he loves GT. And he just looked at me and he goes, yes, sir. And I said, go be Vince Young. And I set him out on the field and I let him call every play. I let him do what he wanted. And lo and behold, it's the last play of the game. He didn't throw a touchdown pass in the corner, so we won the game. And for me, that was the key that was the best part of that coaching was I knew to just let him do his thing rather than me try to be brilliant with play calling. And the second one isn't on the field. In fact, it happened just the other night. We had our awards banquet, the last NIOS awards banquet I'll be a part of. And Casey got up and he gave read a little poem about what is a coach. And he said that at the end of it, he said, when I read these words, I think of one person, and that's Coach Alldredge. And people clapped, and he goes, and it's because of him I've decided I want to be a football coach. And that kind of just hit me right in the feels, so to speak, to know that, he cares. He looked at me enough to say, I want to be like that person.
That's
and that's the one that I remember. So it was probably the last coaching moment that I had, and they're definitely the best.
That's great, and yeah, that is to see that we sow into these young men, and to see that it resonates is always, I think, one of the magical moments of coaching. I don't know who said it and where it was said, but I know that coaches have more influence over athletes than any other individual, and the more I've done this through the years, the more I recognize that to be true. Whether it's with my people who've coached my own children. I often tell a coach, "Hey, would you mind sharing this with my son or daughter, because they'll listen to you." And, you only have to say it once. I have to say it 300 times, and it still won't be heard. So I'd really like to, and I say, "Don't worry, it won't be wash the dishes, or take out the trash." but I'm beginning to, get bold enough now in my later years to realize, what, I may need to add those in there. Well, that's great, Coach. Well, I thank you for spending a little bit of your morning with us. We certainly appreciate it. I wish you and TAIAO all the best. Why don't kind of wrap up? You are now you've stepped down from coaching. You pointed that out by that being your last banquet. So but you're not leaving. You're focusing on TAIAO and its growth. So as we wrap up here. Give us a little bit about what your new role is, what this new, because it's I guess it's an enhanced role. So give me a little bit about what you'll be doing moving forward.
I think it's just about having more time now. I've been telling people I've lived my life on fast forward for 17 years, because if I wasn't doing my real job where I actually earned money, I was doing football stuff. And I was doing the league when I could. And we got the league to where it is with me doing it when I could. Well, I can't promise that I'm going to spend as much time on the league as I did on coaching football, but I know I'll have more time to spend on the league. And it's not even more time to do tasks. I think it's more mental energy to spend on the league.
Yeah.
More time to think about, higher level decisions rather than, what I have been doing in many cases of just getting from one event to another. Okay, I've got the volleyball tournament coming up this weekend. What do I got to do? It's going to be different now to think about, okay, the volleyball tournament is next October. Let me get some things ready now for it. And let me put more time into how it should really run as opposed to just making sure we got it fully staffed. So I think that's going to be the main change, is my focus is going to be able to be more on growth rather than just on getting the tasks achieved.
Sounds good. Hey, well, Coach, thank you very much for your time. We certainly appreciate it. All the best. Looking forward to having you out at our games this year.